Dr. Sarah Chen blinked twice, certain her eyes were playing tricks on her. She'd been working since 6 that morning, and it was now well past noon. Fatigue could do strange things to perception. She leaned closer to Mrs. Patterson's shoulder blade, her magnifying lamp casting a harsh white circle on the older woman's pale skin. "Everything all right, dear?" Mrs. Patterson's voice quavered slightly. She was sitting on the examination table in her hospital gown, her silver hair catching the afternoon light that filtered through the blinds. "Just fine," Sarah said automatically, though her heart had begun to beat faster. "Stay very still for me, please." The mole was small, no bigger than a pencil eraser, dark brown against Mrs. Patterson's freckled skin. Sarah had examined thousands of moles in her 12 years as a dermatologist. She knew every variation, every warning sign, every trick of shadow and angle that could make healthy skin look suspicious. She held her breath and watched. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. The mole sat there, ordinary and still, exactly where it should be. Sarah felt her shoulders relax. She was about to laugh at herself when it happened again. A slight shift, barely perceptible, as if something beneath the skin had rolled over in its sleep. "Mrs. Patterson," Sarah said carefully, keeping her voice steady. "How long have you had this mole?" "Oh, I'm not sure, dear. A few months, maybe? I only notice it because it itches sometimes." Mrs. Patterson tried to turn her head to look, but Sarah gently guided her back. "Don't move just yet. Does it itch right now?" "A little. It comes and goes. Like a tickle, you know? Deep down." Sarah pulled back and switched off the magnifying lamp. The room suddenly felt darker, colder. She took a breath and forced herself to think like a doctor, not like someone who'd just seen something impossible. "I'm going to take some photographs," she said. "Standard procedure. Then I'd like to schedule a biopsy just to be safe." "A biopsy?" Mrs. Patterson's voice rose with worry. "Is it cancer?" "I don't think so," Sarah said, and that much was true. Whatever this was, it wasn't cancer. Cancer didn't move. But I want to be thorough. It's probably nothing, but better to check. After Mrs. Patterson left, promising to call back about scheduling the biopsy, Sarah sat alone in her examination room. She pulled up the photographs on her computer, zooming in until a mole filled the entire screen. In the still images, it looked completely normal. Round, evenly colored, well-defined edges. Nothing unusual at all. She closed her eyes and pressed her fingers against her temples. Maybe she really was just tired. Maybe she needed to take a vacation, like her sister kept suggesting. When was the last time she'd taken a full weekend off? A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Dr. Chen?" Her nurse, Maria, poked her head in. "Your 2 o'clock is here. Mr. Bradley, routine skin check." "Thanks, Maria. I'll be right there." Sarah stood, straightened her white coat, and pushed the strange incident from her mind. She had patients to see, real medical concerns to address. She couldn't afford to lose focus over a trick of the light. Mr. Bradley was a pleasant man in his 50s, a construction worker with sun-damaged skin and a collection of harmless age spots. Sarah examined him with her usual thoroughness, checking his back, his arms, his scalp. Everything looked normal. She was almost finished when she noticed a small, dark mole on his left shoulder blade. Something about it made her pause. "Mr. Bradley, this mole here, have you had it long?" "Which one?" He tried to crane his neck to see. "Left shoulder blade. Small, dark brown." "Oh, that one. No, that's new. Maybe a couple weeks?" "My wife noticed it. That's actually why I made the appointment." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She moved closer with her magnifying lamp, her pulse quickening. The mole looked exactly like Mrs. Patterson's. Same size, same color, same shape. "Does it itch?" she asked. "How'd you know?" Mr. Bradley laughed. "Yeah, it does. Drives me crazy sometimes. Deep itch, you know? Like I can't quite scratch it." Sarah stared at the mole. She didn't want to see it move. She desperately wanted it to stay still, to be normal, to let her believe that this morning had been nothing but exhaustion and overactive imagination. The mole shifted. It was subtle, just a millimeter to the left, but Sarah saw it clearly this time. And this time, She also saw something else, a faint ripple beneath the skin, as if something was swimming just below the surface. Dr. Chen? Mr. Bradley's voice seemed to come from very far away. You okay? Sarah realized she'd been holding her breath. She exhaled slowly, forcing herself to stay calm, to be professional. Yes, sorry. I'm going to recommend a biopsy for this one as well, just as a precaution. A biopsy? Is it serious? I don't think so, Sarah lied, but I'd like to have it examined more closely. After Mr. Bradley left, Sarah canceled her remaining appointments for the day. Maria looked concerned but didn't argue. Sarah locked herself in her office and tried to think rationally about what she'd seen. 2 patients, 2 identical moles, both moving, both itching, both new. She opened her laptop and began searching medical databases. Parasitic infections, subcutaneous migration, myiasis. She looked at photos of botfly larvae, of guinea worms, of all the terrible things that could burrow beneath human skin. None of them looked like what she'd seen. None of them created perfectly round, evenly colored moles. Her phone buzzed. A text from her colleague, Dr. Marcus Webb, who ran a family practice across town. Sarah, weird question. Have you seen any unusual moles lately? Got 3 patients this week with identical marks. All itching. All seem to move when I examine them. Starting to think I'm losing my mind. Coffee tomorrow? Sarah's hand shook as she typed her response. Not losing your mind. I've seen it too. Coffee, yes. Can you come to my office first thing? Bring your files. She set down her phone and stared at the wall. 3 of Marcus's patients. 2 of hers. That made 5 people in Millbrook with the same impossible symptom. No, she corrected herself. 5 people that they knew about. How many others might there be? Sarah looked out her office window at the quiet street below. Millbrook was a small town, population barely 12,000, nestled in a valley between 2 mountains. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where nothing much ever happened. The biggest excitement in recent memory had been when the old movie theater closed down last year. Now something was moving through their town, one body at a time. Sarah worked late into the night, going through her patient files from the past month. She found 3 more cases she'd initially dismissed. Patients she'd seen for other reasons, who'd mentioned a new itchy mole in passing. She'd barely noted it at the time. Now, reviewing her photographs, she could see them clearly. 3 more identical moles. 8 total. 8 people with the same mark. She called each of them, apologizing for the late hour, asking them to come in for follow-up examinations. Most agreed readily, though they sounded confused. One didn't answer. Sarah left a voicemail, trying to keep the urgency from her voice. At midnight, she finally went home to her small apartment above the pharmacy on Main Street. She made tea she didn't drink and sat by her window, watching the empty street below. A cat crossed under a streetlight. A car drove past, its headlights cutting through the darkness. Normal. Everything looked so normal. But Sarah couldn't shake the image of that mole shifting beneath Mrs. Patterson's skin. Couldn't forget the ripple that suggested something living and moving beneath the surface. She must have dozed off in her chair, because she woke to dawn light streaming through her window and her neck aching from the awkward angle. Her phone was buzzing. Marcus. Sarah? Thank God. Can you come to the hospital? Now. What happened? It's Tom Bradley. The hospital admitted him last night. His wife called 911 around midnight. Sarah, you need to see this. 20 minutes later, Sarah hurried to the automatic doors of Millbrook General Hospital. Still wearing yesterday's clothes, her hair hastily pulled back. Marcus met her at the nurse's station, his usually cheerful face drawn and pale. Room 304, he said. I should warn you. But Sarah was already walking toward the room, her heart pounding. Through the door window, she could see Mr. Bradley lying in the hospital bed, his wife sitting beside him, holding his hand. Even from here, Sarah could see that something was wrong. She pushed open the door, and Mrs. Bradley looked up with red-rimmed eyes. Dr. Chen, thank God. Maybe you can explain what's happening to him. Sarah approached the bed slowly. Mr. Bradley was awake, but looked exhausted, his skin pale and sweaty. But it wasn't his face that caught her attention. It was his arms. They were covered in moles. Not just a few. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. Small, dark, perfectly round moles, scattered across the skin like a terrible constellation. And as Sarah watched, frozen in horror, she saw them moving. Slowly, imperceptibly to anyone not looking closely, but definitely moving, shifting position, migrating across the skin like a slow tide. It started around midnight, Mrs. Bradley said, her voice breaking. Just on his shoulder at first, where that one mole was, but then more appeared. They just kept appearing. He said it burned, like something was spreading through him. What is this? What's wrong with my husband? Sarah couldn't speak. She moved closer, her professional training taking over despite her shock. She examined Mr. Bradley's arms, his chest, his back. The moles were everywhere, and beneath each one, she could see that faint ripple, that suggestion of movement underneath. "Tom," she said gently, "how you feel?" "Tired," he said, his voice hoarse. "So tired, and it itches everywhere. Deep down, you know? Like something's crawling inside me." Marcus appeared at Sarah's shoulder. His blood work is normal. Temperature slightly elevated, but everything else is within range. I've never seen anything like this. "Neither have I," Sarah admitted. She looked at Mr. Bradley, at the fear in his wife's eyes, and made a decision. "Tom, I need to do a biopsy. Right now. Can you consent to that?" He nodded weakly. Sarah worked quickly, numbing a small area on his arm, and extracting a sample from one of the moles. The procedure was standard, something she'd done thousands of times, but her hands trembled as she worked. Through the magnifying scope, she could see that the tissue beneath the mole was different, darker, denser, almost as if something had replaced the normal skin cells. "I'm sending this to the lab for a rush analysis," she said, carefully packaging the sample. "Tom, I want you to stay here, where we can monitor you. Mrs. Bradley, I need you to think carefully. Has Tom been anywhere unusual lately? Eaten anything strange? Been exposed to anything out of the ordinary?" Mrs. Bradley shook her head helplessly. "No, nothing. He goes to work, comes home, watches TV. Same as always. He's just a normal person living a normal life." Normal, Sarah thought, just like Mrs. Patterson, just like all of them. She left the room with Marcus, pulling him into an empty corridor. "Marcus, how many patients did you say you'd seen with these moles?" "3, but I called them all this morning after you texted last night. They're all coming in today." "Why?" "Because I've identified 8 cases so far, and Tom Bradley is the first one who's progressed to this stage, which means the others might be following the same path. We need to find them all, Marcus. Everyone in Millbrook with these marks. We need to find them before." "Before what?" Marcus asked, though his expression showed he already understood. "Before whatever's inside them spreads completely." They spent the rest of the morning calling patients, checking files, sending urgent messages through the hospital system. By noon, they'd identified 17 people in Millbrook with the unusual moles. By evening, that number had risen to 23. The lab results came back at 6 p.m. Sarah read them 3 times, certain she was misunderstanding something fundamental. The tissue sample wasn't human. It wasn't any known parasite either, or bacteria, or fungus. The cells were unlike anything in the medical database. They were organic, definitely alive, but structured in a way that didn't match any known organism. The lab tech who'd analyzed it had included a note. "Dr. Chen, I think you need to contact the CDC. This is beyond my expertise." Sarah sat in her office, staring at the results as the sun set outside her window. 23 people. 23 people in Millbrook carrying something inside them that wasn't supposed to exist. A knock startled her. Maria stood in the doorway, looking worried. "Dr. Chen, I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to show you something." Sarah looked up and her stomach dropped. Maria was rolling up her sleeve, revealing her forearm. There, just below her elbow, was a small, dark, perfectly round mole. "It appeared this afternoon," Maria said, her voice shaking. "And Sarah, it itches. Deep down." Sarah stood slowly, her mind racing. Maria lived here in Millbrook. She worked in the clinic, saw patients every day, but she hadn't been in direct contact with any of the infected individuals. "So how?" "Maria," Sarah said carefully, "I need you to think. In the past week, have you been anywhere specific? Anywhere that the patients might have also been?" Maria frowned, thinking, "I don't know. Just the usual places. Grocery store, gas station, the coffee shop on Main Street." She trailed off, her eyes widening. "Wait, the town meeting. Last Tuesday night. There was that town meeting about the new development proposal. Half of Millbrook was there." Sarah felt her blood run cold. A town meeting. A gathering of hundreds of people, all crowded into the community center, breathing the same air, touching the same doors, sitting in the same chairs. She pulled out her phone and started scrolling through her patient files, checking dates. Mrs. Patterson, she'd mentioned attending the meeting. Mr. Bradley, too. She'd seen it in his intake form. She called Marcus. "The town meeting," she said as soon as he answered. "Were your patients there?" A pause. "Hold on." She heard papers rustling. Yes. All three of them mentioned it. "Sarah, what does that mean?" "It means this isn't random. Whatever this is, it's spreading. It started at that meeting, and now it's moving through the town. Maria just showed me a mole. She was at the meeting too." "Jesus," Marcus breathed. "Sarah, there were hundreds of people at that meeting. If they're all infected..." Sarah closed her eyes. The math was simple and terrible. If the progression was the same for everyone, if they all followed Tom Bradley's path, then in a matter of days, maybe hours, hundreds of people would be covered in those moving moles, would feel that burning spread, would be consumed by whatever was migrating through their skin. "We need to call the CDC," Sarah said. "And we need to find everyone who was at that meeting. Tonight." They worked through the night, Sarah and Marcus, and a growing team of concerned medical staff. The town clerk provided the sign-in sheet from the meeting, 326 names. Sarah felt sick. Over 300 people potentially infected. They started making calls, sending messages, organizing emergency examinations at the hospital. Some people came willingly. Others were skeptical, annoyed at being disturbed so late. But as word spread through Millbrook's tight-knit community, more and more people began to worry, began to check their own skin in bathroom mirrors, began to feel phantom itches deep beneath the surface. By 2 a.m., they'd examined 47 people. 32 had the moles. 32 people carrying something unknown inside them, something that was slowly spreading, migrating, taking over. Sarah stood in the hospital hallway, exhausted beyond measure, when she heard the scream. It came from Tom Bradley's room. She ran, Marcus right behind her. They burst through the door to find Mrs. Bradley backing away from the bed, her hand over her mouth, her eyes wide with terror. Tom Bradley was convulsing, but it wasn't a normal seizure. His skin was rippling, visibly moving, as if 1,000 things were swimming just beneath the surface. The moles that had covered his arms and chest were now spreading across his face, his neck, his legs. And as Sarah watched, frozen in horror, she saw them beginning to merge, the individual marks blending together into larger patches of that strange, dark tissue. "Get a crash cart," Marcus shouted. But Sarah knew instinctively that no amount of medical intervention would stop what was happening. Tom's eyes opened. For a moment, he looked directly at Sarah, and she saw something in his gaze that made her blood freeze. It wasn't fear. It wasn't pain. It was something else entirely. A strange, distant awareness, as if Tom Bradley was looking at her from very far away. His mouth opened, and he spoke one word: "Spreading." Then his eyes closed and his body went still. Not dead. His chest still rose and fell with breath, but changed. The skin that had been pale and sweaty was now darker, smoother, almost iridescent in the harsh hospital lights. The individual moles had merged completely into something new, something that covered him like a second skin. Mrs. Bradley was sobbing. Marcus was checking vitals, his face pale, and Sarah stood there, staring at what used to be Tom Bradley, and understood with terrible clarity what was happening. This wasn't infection. This wasn't disease. It was a transformation. Something was migrating through Millbrook, one body at a time, changing people from the inside out, and they'd only just begun to understand it. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from the lab. More tissue analysis complete. You need to see this. The cells, they're not replacing human tissue. They're converting it, rewriting it at a molecular level. Dr. Chen, this is way beyond medicine. This is something else entirely. Sarah looked from her phone to Tom Bradley's transformed body to the window, where the first light of dawn was breaking over Millbrook. Out there in houses and apartments across the town, hundreds of people were sleeping, unaware of the small dark marks on their skin, unaware of what was growing inside them, unaware that their bodies were no longer entirely their own. And somewhere in that silent town, somewhere in the shadows between streetlights, Sarah knew more moles were appearing. More people were being marked. The migration was continuing, spreading, reaching further with every passing hour. She thought of her sister, who lived 2 towns over. Her parents, retired in the next county. Her niece, just 8 years old, who visited sometimes on weekends. How far would it spread? How long before it reached beyond Millbrook? Sarah walked a window and looked out her town, bathed in the soft light of early morning. It looked peaceful, beautiful even, but she knew that appearance was just skin deep. Beneath the surface, something else was stirring, something ancient and patient and utterly beyond human understanding. And all she could do was watch it spread. The hospital intercom crackled to life. Dr. Chen, please report to the emergency room. Dr. Chen to the emergency room. Multiple incoming patients reporting. A pause, and Sarah could hear the fear in the nurse's voice, reporting unusual skin manifestations. Marcus met her eyes across Tom Bradley's bed. His expression reflected her own dread. This was only the beginning. Sarah ran. She flew down the hallway, her shoes squeaking against the polished floor, Marcus right behind her. Other staff members were moving too, all heading toward the emergency room with the same grim urgency. Through the windows, Sarah could see cars pulling into the parking lot, their headlights cutting through the pre-dawn darkness. The emergency room doors burst open, and Sarah stopped short. The waiting area was packed. Dozens of people, maybe more, crowded onto every available seat and standing against the walls. And all of them, every single one, was scratching at their arms, their necks, their faces. Some were crying. Others sat in stunned silence. A few were frantically pulling up their sleeves, their pant legs, checking their skin again and again, as if hoping the marks would disappear. "Oh my God," Marcus whispered beside her. Dr. Patricia Hayes, the head of emergency medicine, spotted Sarah and rushed over. Patricia was normally unflappable, but now her face was drawn tight with stress. "Sarah, thank God. They started arriving about 20 minutes ago. All of them claiming they woke up with these moles. All of them itching. I've counted at least 60 so far, and more keep coming." Patricia lowered her voice. "What the hell is happening?" Before Sarah could answer, a man's voice rose above the anxious murmur of the crowd. "Somebody help me. Please, it's burning." Sarah pushed through the crowd toward the voice. A young man. She recognized him as Jake Morrison, who worked at the hardware store, was doubled over in a plastic chair, his arms wrapped around his stomach. Sweat poured down his face, and when Sarah reached him, she could see his skin rippling beneath his t-shirt. "Jake, I'm Dr. Chen. Let me see." His hands were shaking as he lifted his shirt. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. His torso was already covered in dozens of the dark moles, appearing before her eyes like stars blinking into existence. As she watched, a new one emerged on his ribcage, the skin darkening in a perfect circle, and she could see the slight movement beneath as whatever it was settled into place. "It itches so bad," Jake gasped. "What's happening to me? What is this thing?" Sarah didn't know what to say. She couldn't tell him the truth, that in hours, maybe less, he might end up like Tom Bradley, his body transformed into something else entirely. She couldn't tell him that she had no idea how to stop it. "We're going to help you," she said instead, and hoped it wasn't a lie. Maria appeared at her elbow, looking terrified but determined. "Dr. Chen, we need a plan." We can't examine all these people individually. There are too many. Sarah looked around the packed emergency room. Maria was right. With the staff they had and the number of patients still arriving, individual examinations would take days. And they didn't have days. If Tom Bradley's progression was any indication, some of these people would be in critical condition within hours. Triage, Sarah said, making the decision quickly. Anyone with fewer than 10 visible moles goes home with instructions to monitor and call if it worsens. Anyone with more than 10 we admit for observation. Anyone showing signs of rapid progression, like Jake here, gets immediate attention. It wasn't perfect. It probably wasn't even adequate, but it was all they could do. As Maria rushed off to organize the other nurses, Sarah helped Jake to his feet and guided him toward an examination room. Behind her, she heard Patricia's voice on the intercom, calling in every available doctor and nurse. The hospital was mobilizing for what was quickly becoming a crisis. The next few hours passed in a blur of examinations, admissions, and mounting dread. Sarah moved from patient to patient, documenting the progression, taking samples, trying desperately to find some pattern that would help her understand what was happening. She found none. The moles appeared randomly, without any obvious pattern. Some patients had them on their arms, others on their back.